Have you ever stopped to wonder how a world with 8 billion people can collectively owe $315 trillion? Think about it. Who are we even owing this money to? Aliens? Mars? Did we borrow some galactic currency to build our cities? It's a number so vast, it has completely detached from reality. If every single person on Earth worked for a whole year without spending a single cent, if every factory ran 24/7 for no profit, we wouldn't even pay off a fraction of this mountain. In our world, we are taught that debt is a temporary guest. You borrow, you build, you repay, and the obligation vanishes. But in the world of modern nations, debt is like a relative who moves into your guest room, eats your food, and simply refuses to leave. Ever. This isn't a glitch in the financial system. It's not a mistake made by some tired accountant. It's a design, a very clever, very subtle architecture. Today, we are going to meet the 4 master architects who built this invisible cage we all live in. So, stay with me. Because once you see the mechanism, you can never look at your bank account the same way again. Let's see who's actually driving this bus. Our story starts in the shadows of 1694 with a man named William Paterson. Imagine a king who wants to play with expensive toys, meaning he wants to go to war. But the king's treasury is empty. Usually, if a king doesn't pay you back, you're out of luck. You can't exactly put a king in timeout or take him to court. So Paterson stepped in with a radical, almost sinister vision. He told the government, "You never have to repay the principal amount of the debt. Not now, not ever." Sounds like a dream for the king, right? Free money. But here was the hook. Paterson said, "You just have to pay us a small interest fee every year, forever." To manage this, they established the Bank of England. They took people's gold, gave it to the king, and issued paper notes in return. This was the exact moment debt became immortal. The paper money in your pocket right now? It's not gold. It's not even money in the traditional sense. It's a thank you note for a debt that will never be settled. Paterson ensured the debt never dies. It only grows. Stop and think about that. Your entire economy is built on a foundation of never giving it back. If the debt was actually paid, the money in your wallet would literally vanish. How's that for a stable foundation? But a permanent debt needs to travel. It needs to cross borders. And that's where the Rothschilds come in during the 1800s. They were the masters of information in an era where secrets were the ultimate currency. During the famous Battle of Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild found out the outcome before anyone else in London. He didn't share the news with the public. Instead, he walked into the market and started selling his stocks, looking absolutely defeated. Everyone else panicked, thinking Napoleon had won and the British economy was doomed. They sold everything they owned for pennies. And Nathan? He secretly bought it all back through agents. When the real news arrived that the British had won, he essentially owned the entire English market in a single afternoon. He proved a terrifying principle. If you control the information, you control the price of the debt. From that day on, sovereign debt wasn't just a contract, it was a global weapon. You pull one string in London, and the whole world shakes. It made nations realize that debt was no longer a domestic choice. It was a global cage they couldn't afford to break. By the early 20th century, the system needed a forever machine, something that didn't depend on one family or one king. In 1907, the American financial system was on the verge of collapsing like a fragile glass vase. J.P. Morgan, the titan of Wall Street, summoned the most powerful bankers to his private library in New York. And then, he locked the doors. "Nobody leaves," he said. "Not until you pledge your wealth to fix the system." It worked. But Morgan was only one man, and he was getting old. The world needed an immortal institution. So a few years later, a group of powerful men snuck off to an island called Jekyll Island. They used fake names and pretended to be hunters to avoid public suspicion. Imagine them, sitting by a fireplace, redesigning the fate of the world while the rest of the country slept. There, they designed the Federal Reserve. They gave it a superpower, the ability to create money out of thin air and lend it to the government at interest. Now, there was no limit. The government could spend whatever it wanted on wars, projects, and promises, and the machine would just keep printing more debt notes. Reality was officially replaced by the speed of the printing press. The leash was gone. But how do you ensure no one ever escapes this cage? How do you keep the whole world in line? Enter Paul Volcker in the 1980s. Nations like Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina were drowning in loans they had been encouraged to take. They were ready to say, "We give up, we can't pay." But if they did, the big banks in the West would have died instantly. So the enforcers stepped in. Volcker and the IMF changed the rules. They told these countries, "We will lend you more money, but only so you can pay us the interest on the old money." It sounds absurd, doesn't it? It's like borrowing a new cookie from your mom just to pay her the fee for the cookie you ate yesterday. You never get to eat a new cookie. You are just servicing the ghost of the old one. It's a loop, a trap. Schools, hospitals, and the futures of entire generations were sacrificed just to keep this interest flowing upward. Debt was no longer a financial tool. It was a pair of handcuffs that you can't see, but you can definitely feel. Now, let's look at the most brilliant part of the trick. I call it the mathematical paradox. If a bank creates $10 out of nothing, but demands $11 back with interest, where does that extra dollar come from? The bank didn't print it. No one did. The only way to find that extra dollar to pay the bank is to borrow it from the bank again. This is why the global debt mountain can never, ever disappear. It is mathematically designed to be unpayable. It's a game of musical chairs where the music never stops, but there are never enough chairs for everyone. Someone, somewhere, is always meant to go bankrupt just to keep the system alive. Is it going to be you or your neighbor? And who do we actually owe? Here is the final punchline. We owe it to ourselves. The debt is held in your parents' retirement funds, the insurance policies protecting your home, the banks where you keep your hard-earned savings. We are the prisoners, but we are also the guards holding the keys to our own cell. If we tried to cancel the debt tomorrow, the entire global economy would turn off like a light switch. No more pensions, no more trade, no more grocery stores, nothing. We are not just borrowing money. We are borrowing tomorrow just to pay for today. We are eating the future of our children to pay for the mistakes of the past. Paterson made debt permanent. The Rothschilds made it global. Morgan made it infinite. And Volcker made it inescapable. This cage wasn't built in a day. It was built during wars and crises when the world was too distracted and too scared to say no. Maybe the crises were real, or maybe they were just the perfect excuse to add another lock to the door. This system doesn't need to be a secret anymore. It just needs you to believe it's normal, like gravity or the weather. But once you see the architects, once you see the mechanism, normal starts to look like a very, very strange dream. You're running on a treadmill, staring at a $315 trillion shadow that is growing larger every second. The math doesn't lie. And the clock is ticking. Now that you've seen the architects, are you going to keep running, or are you finally ready to look for the exit? The truth is the only asset you truly own. If this deep dive changed how you see the world, show us by hitting the like button and subscribing. We are just beginning to unmask the machine, and the next chapters are going to take us even deeper into the rabbit hole. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The continuation of this series is already in the works. Stay tuned and keep your eyes open.